recent days, the frequency of Boko Haram assaults on Cameroon's far north region has been witnessing a rather peculiar uptick, coming on the back of a recent mutiny by some soldiers in that part of the country. We ask, is there a bulging malaise within the ranks of the army at the war front? And elsewhere, as French investigators formally charge Congolese President Denis Sassou Nguesso's daughter and spouse of stealing and stashing ill-gotten wealth from their country in France, we ask, is Cameroon's presidential family clean enough to be ignored in that probe? This is Tough Talk, and we'll be back in a moment. Kejan Henry Atembe is here once again. Bro, welcome back from leave.
Thanks very much, Taruki Divine. Good morning to our televiewers and to you particularly.
You enjoyed your leave, I guess. I can see your jaws bulging. And this is Tough Talk, Elie Smith.
Yeah,
thanks for being there once again.
It's a pleasure to be here again.
So let's start off with our icebreaker. Cameroon's Congress Palace in Yaoundé plays host us from this Wednesday to the first ever Diaspora Forum organized by the Ministry of External Relations. The conclave seeks to attract Cameroonians based abroad to come contribute in the country's development via multi-form investments. And Elie, you must agree, as I do, that this is a laudable initiative.
Yes, it is really indeed a laudable initiative, but on the other hand, there's a problem. You want the money from the diaspora, but you are also having this problem with dual nationalities. Right. So there are a number of them who are Cameroonians, but who have now foreign nationalities. How will they operate in Cameroon? So you love their money, but you don't want them to come back. So it's a very good initiative.
Right. We're coming to talk about dual nationality in a moment, Elie Smith. But there are fears, Henry, that this venture may end up as others before it, probably not in the same domain. It's a laudable initiative, like Elie says, which gulps up millions worth of taxpayers' money. Do you fear it may end up with nothing to write home about?
It might end up with nothing. You are not far from the point. Let me just quickly say that this is coming at the eve of presidential election in the country, and political analysts are already saying that this is a way for Mr. Biya, the president,
to lure
the diaspora.
Even though they don't participate in the
elections. No, there's diasporic. No, they do. Diasporic election exists. The diaspora votes for the
election. Those who still have Cameroonian
nationality. You are right. Now, but this is already a political game, and just like Elie was saying, you are luring the diaspora. Remember, this is not the first time he has talked to the diaspora to come back home. We're asking the question, are they enabling, and in fact, is the environment enabling enough for those people to come back home and set up business and work for the interest of this nation? How many of Cameroonians are living out of the country? Probably we don't know the figures here.
5 million, actually had a report mentioning 5 million.
5 million, good. If 5 million Cameroonians should come back with more than 500, or to 700 medical doctors, more than 1,000 engineers, you have scientists of no-nonsense ability. They are there working for other nations, and we are suffering. But if you put the enabling environment for these people to come back, they will come. But is it possible to put it?
Okay, it's nice that you're talking about the enabling environment, Elie Smith, because the next question comes in from there. Rwanda and Ghana are examples in Africa who have embarked on such ventures and emerged with real success stories. I can tell you, the Ghanaian diaspora those who came back to Ghana from abroad are doing a great job for that country. But that's because the right incentives were put in place.
Exactly, the right incentives were put in place, hence they are coming back. Besides Rwanda and Ghana, you have other countries like Mali, people seem to underestimate. You have Senegal, you also have South Africa and Nigeria. You see, there are a number of those, they call them Nigeria, the returnees who are back and work in the financial sector, and they are really changing the whole place. So the thing is, the enabling environment has to be put in place. If the government is serious, it's going to be good, because for so long, this regime has been looking with suspicions those who are in the diaspora. They view them as adversaries. Especially, someone told me, I'll not give you his name, on the lawn, on the side of the at Hotel Sawa, that The problem with this problem of dual nationality is that they don't want Bamenda people to come back into this country. When they tell about Bamenda people, it's a kind of generic term for Anglophones who left en masse this country. And they also have, because the people of this country, the government is afraid of the diaspora, hence they have this kind of suspicions. But if now they have realized that the diaspora is a major force of development, then it's a good thing. We have to salute them. But we also want them, as Kejang said, create the enabling environment for them to come, not to racket them when they come back to the country.
Okay, so I must be wrapping up. My conclusion will be, Henry, and I don't want you to buy my point of view. Is Cameroon attractive enough, given its current state, for its sons and daughters who have opted to go live and work abroad to come back home? The question, the example I want to use rather, is the plight of doctors.
Yes, that is
You
true.
mentioned doctors when you started.
It's a plight of doctors. Now, when the doctors take those who practice in the United States, about 700 of them, when they hear what is happening, the treatment they met out on doctors in the country, they start asking themselves the questions whether they should come, whether they, like you said, the environment is enabling for them to return. Now, if they have to come and set up, business here, at the start of it, despite what the investment promotion agency is saying, talking about tax rebates or tax holidays for good. But we understand what is going on, the administrative bottlenecks. Some people will finally give up and go back to the United States. Look, let me just tell you something. I was around the corridors of the biggest cancer center, the oncology center in the Central African sub-region, owned by a Cameroonian, and of course manned or patronized by one of the finest oncologists we can find in this country. I talked to Professor Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
That center is still to take off because of the administrative bottleneck at the customs.
Okay.
You can imagine the type of machines they are bringing. In fact, the latest technology in cancer treatment in the world. But it is difficult for these medical doctors, which we have, and they are not able to practice, to go on.
Okay, Elie Smith, let's come back to you with the dual nationality debate. Ministers in Cameroon are known to hold French and Cameroonian nationality, but they are part of the government of this country. But some, the ordinary Cameroonians who work abroad, when they come home with their US passports, with their UK passports, they are treated as foreigners. So some say the Yaoundé Forum will end in futility if the dual nationality blockades are not knocked off.
Yeah, it is true, because I even think one of the propositions or proposals made by the people of diaspora was to knock off the dual nationality hindrance, because if
it doesn't even feature on the agenda of the Yaoundé.
It doesn't. And the other thing is that most of those people of the diaspora who came, it seemed as if they were kind of sift. They picked some of them who are compatible pro-government to bring them here. That's what I saw, which shows that the government is not serious, because honestly speaking, in the United States that I know, in the United Kingdom, there are some Cameroonians there who are very wealthy, who could have been a very good source of income or investment in Cameroon. We're saying something off record because it doesn't only suffice to organize a conference. You know that people who are in the diaspora contribute in remittance to those who are back home. Okay. There are some obstruction. I think Kejang knows that very well. Maybe he would like to talk about oil. Maybe he doesn't want to. There are some obstructions that the government puts in place that sometimes hinders these people from the diaspora to contribute. For example, in West Cameroon, if West Cameroon today you go to Victoria, Boya, Bamenda and see it is developing, it's simply because the diaspora, the remittances of the diaspora is contributing in transforming West Cameroon. Okay. If you go to Mali, for example, the region of Kai, it is changing today, the Kai region, simply because of the diaspora in Mali who are abroad, in particular in France.
I'm talking about,
yes, Henry, briefly.
Yes, I'm talking about remittances. There is this story that is carried by papers where something worth 3 million francs sent from the diaspora to a particular family. But there is this problem because the person who went to collect the money to help that family contribute in building a home for that family carried the name Wilbur.
Okay.
And it's a lady. Now the bank in question sidelined that Wilbur lady and refused to give that money because it is said that that money was sent to fund, violence and so on and so forth. Whereas that money was sent.
I would suggest she drags the bank in question to court, and I think she will easily have a cause.
And she has nothing to do with the wheelbarrow in question.
Now, if you don't mind, Henry, one Cameroonian who has been so enraged by the country's laws on dual nationality and its discriminatory implementation is called Mr. Richard Bona. He's a world-acclaimed bassist, Cameroonian. He's based in the US. Up next, we resurrect a focus we did on his frustration with the government's policy on dual nationality. It was aired a couple of months ago on Canal International, but we bring it back for you. Globally acclaimed vocalist and bassist Richard Bona definitely needs no publicity. Over the past 2 decades, the native of Minta in the Upper Sanaga division of Cameroon's East region has solidly engraved his musical mark across the world. From Rio de Janeiro through Paris to Korea, and from Moscow via Amsterdam to Cape Town, from Nairobi and Abidjan to Dakar, Bona and his superlatively melodious musical fabrications are exceptionally high in demand.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
And wherever he goes, the New York-based inspirational instrumentalist who continues to rub shoulders with the world's greatest has never forgotten his roots. The 48-year-old spares no chance to remind his multitudes of admirers where he comes from. Yet, in late October 2014, something happened. Richard Bona, who still jealously brandishes a valid Cameroonian passport and ID card, despite his naturalization as an American citizen, planned a traditional year-end homecoming. But he was exasperated when officials at the Cameroon embassy in the US obliged him to apply for a visa. The requirement, despite its controversial and sometimes provocative nature, was nonetheless in compliance with Cameroon's laws on dual and multiple nationalities, which clearly stipulate that any Cameroonian who obtains a foreign nationality automatically forfeits his Cameroonian citizenship.
Oitikanendu tumule mama Bona songo basitanika Oyanga mama diki Lomende chenewe Tumbale na yedi mako Yankuma ye.
But Bona, who considers himself a citizen of the world, frowned at the hurdle, questioning why the law is discriminatory when government ministers and other high-profile personalities are concerned. Sounding off his exasperation, Bona declared he would never set foot on Cameroonian soil for as long as the law remained biased and one-sided.
Le seul problème en Afrique, c'est le même problème qu'on a toujours eu. Hein. C'est le problème des dirigeants, quoi.
His Cameroonian aficionados pleaded in vain for a U-turn to the decision. And so when Arts and Culture Minister Narcisse Mwele Kombi announced a Knight of the Order of Valor medal would be conferred on Bona, alongside veteran Makossa singer Ben Deka on Tuesday, December 15 in Yaoundé, observers held their breaths, anxiously waiting for Bona's reaction. And behold, it came. After a rather comical Facebook posting on the eve of the event in which he voiced thanks to the minister for the recognition, Bona announced he had tearfully cancelled his flight to Cameroon, suggesting the medal be sent him via DHL. Predictably, he boycotted the ceremony, citing family constraints, according to the contents of a rather terse letter purportedly written by him. Ever since, Bona has been placed in the verbal firing line by some who consider him unpatriotic. But legal purists say his actions provide a glaring chance for Cameroon to fine-tune and overhaul its laws on foreign nationality, which were promulgated by the Ahmadou Ahidjo regime in the 1960s as a means of shutting out dissidents, and which today sticks out as a jangling cord of discord for the country's swelling and resourceful diaspora.
I wanna know when you're gonna come.
That was Mr. Richard Bona. I like calling him like that. He doesn't wear gloves when he hits against the authorities in Cameroon for, among others, the continuous resistance in knocking off the blockades in the dual nationality law. Hello, Tabi Clarkson.
Yes,
I must remind our viewers that you are our Yaoundé correspondent, and you have your ears on the ground, your eyes wide open regarding the Diaspora Forum, which goes underway this morning. What's the ambience around the place?
Tell us, it's true that, of course, the Yaoundé Conference Center is now full to capacity, because they have come in their numbers, those in the diaspora, to take part in this first ever forum for the diaspora that is holding here at the Yaoundé Conference Center under the theme Cameroon and its diaspora working together for the development of the nation. And believe me, at this juncture, the participants are waiting for the arrival of the Prime Minister of the Republic. He will be the one to chair over this ceremony on behalf of the President of the Republic. So Philemon Yang is being awaited here at the Yaoundé Conference Center, where all is set for this first ever forum on the diaspora.
Have you seen any opposition faces around the place? Because we've had a word that most of the guests of the forum are pro-government people.
Yes, it's true that there's too much noise. Are you talking of the expectations of the participants?
No. Tabi, have you seen any opposition faces that you know out there? Have you seen people?
Any opposition leader?
Yes.
It's true that from where we are standing, we have not seen any as for now, but rumors are saying that we shall actually have some opposition leaders during this forum.
Okay, now are the participants hoping that groundbreaking decisions will be announced? I'm looking at things like bigger tax holidays for them if they decided to invest in Cameroon.
It's true that expectations are quite high, because yesterday during a series of workshops here at the Yaoundé Conference Center, we had the opportunity to discuss with some participants, and their greatest desire is that of course, as what concerns taxes, that there should be a reduction, because they want to. Some of them do believe that if per contract, they can actually have 15% reduction, and that will be something. Wonderful. That will be something that will actually encourage those in the diaspora to come and invest here in Cameroon. So talking about the taxes, they do believe that if taxes are reduced, they will actually come here and inject. Some of them actually confirm the fact that they too, they are the sons and daughters of the Republic, that they too, they are Cameroonians, and they would like to see Cameroon develop. They would like to see Cameroon emerge by 2035. They too, they would like to invest, and that's all see if they actually take it into consideration, if government officials actually discuss with them, and if their taxes too are actually reduced.
Okay. Are people talking about the dual nationality law and its constraints?
Yes, dual nationality is actually a constraint, and they actually want to believe that this issue will be discussed, and that it will be taken into consideration and that, of course, it will no longer be a hindrance because we know that this issue of dual nationality for some years now is actually the topic of the day. So those who are present here at the Yaoundé Conference Center do believe that this issue will equally be tackled.
Thanks very much, Tabi Clarkson, for being there for us.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure when we can.
Extend my greetings to that woman who gave you pop-off and beans in the morning. I hope they don't feed the guys from the diaspora with that.
Of course, you know, it's not every day that we get pop-up and beans. And believe me, that yesterday I ate pop-up and beans with one guy from the diaspora.
Okay.
Because, you know, the diaspora is not every day that they have that opportunity to eat pop-up and beans.
Thanks once again. We'll be back with you next week to find out the outcomes of the meeting. Tabi Clarkson is our reporter based in Yaoundé. Henry Kejang, the dual nationality thing keeps on coming and never goes away.
It keeps coming. You know, that is the 1968 law, as all of us have to discover. But it still keeps on coming. And the question is whether or not the government is interested in having the money or the remittances from those living out of the country and not willing to have them back home to come and invest.
Okay.
And like Elie said, well, the government feels that those out of the diaspora or diasporic population is a threat to them, especially those of English-speaking expression.
Thanks for being there once again, Keja. Now she looks like one of those from the diaspora because she changed her hairdo and she actually looks like she comes in from Jamaica, but she comes in from somewhere around Douala. Gina, welcome.
Thank you. I come precisely from the BLM division. So I'm going back to my roots with my afro.
Okay, thanks for wearing it and showing a true picture of who we are.
Yeah, indeed.
So what's trending?
Well, I mean, yesterday there were Tuesday evening presidential decrees, which were first of all read on the over the CRTV, appointing new officials at the helm of state universities of the country. And we'll just talk about some of these new officials who will be heading at the universities. I would like to begin with the University of Boya. We understand that the reign...
That's a big concern for Anglophones.
Yes, the reign of Professor Nalova Limunga, yes, was characterized with a lot of controversy, and there are a lot of people that have been clamoring that she should be removed, even though we understand that her retirement, she was already due retirement since I think February 2016. She was flushed
out, she was sacked.
Yes, there are a lot of people who
she just went on retirement, right?
Yes.
The president sent her on retirement.
Sent her on retirement.
After 5 years of service?
Yes, but there are people who think that she precipitated her own retirement because...
With those misdeeds you were mentioning?
Exactly, exactly. And we are going to we are going to talk more about the misdeeds and the controversies that surrounded her reign. But now our audience should understand that the new Vice Chancellor at the University of Boya is now Professor Ngomo Horace Manga, who is coming from the Ministry of Higher Education. He was, before his appointment, he was the Secretary General at the Ministry of Higher Education. And like we were discussing earlier on, there are a lot of people who are still confused. I mean, how is the transition going to be coming from that position of administration? I don't know.
It's like, it seems to me like the government is just tightening its grip at the helm of the University of Boya. That's my conclusion. It
looks so. Well, we are going to see that in the course of his reign. But there were also some major changes at the University of Yaoundé 1 and Yaoundé 2. We have Professor Ako Edward Oben, who was a former rector of Marwa. He's now Pro-Chancellor, instead that's still at the University of Boya. Yeah, the new Post-Chancellor. He replaces Professor Maurice Trente. We also have Professor Alium Idrisu, who is a new rector now of the University of Yaoundé 1. Also at Garo Ngaoundéré, we have Professor Yufe. We're talking about her, the former JM at Mipo Malo. Yes, she is the new...
That's a mission for the promotion of local building material.
Exactly. She is the new rector at the University of...
And some say she's a round peg,
yes,
a round hole or something?
Yes, a lot of people think that she demonstrated a lot of dexterity at the helm of Mipumalo, and the thing that if she carries on with that same spirit at the University of Ngaoundere, she's going to bring a lot of positive changes to the university.
That's the sister to Yufe Nseke, who once worked at the Cameroon Radio and Television.
Exactly.
Another Anglophone.
Yes, another Anglophone. And of course, another woman at the helm of the university. I think it's good news if we are talking about women empowerment. If we can have more ladies heading top state universities, I think it's a good thing for to put women in front
Gender
of
balance is
yes, yes, it's very important. And also at the university, there was just this transfer at the university. First of all, I'd like to say Professor Teresa Akenji, of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Bamenda, she was maintained. Some people say that she survived. Yes, she was maintained at the helm of the university as the Vice Chancellor of the University of Bamenda. But there was a small change. We had Professor Daniel Akume, who is the director of the Higher Technical Teachers Training College, Bambili. He was transferred to the Higher Technical Teachers Training College in Kumba, the newly created Technical Teachers Training College in Kumba. So those were some of the changes that were made. There are others, directors and deans, but we are not going to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about, we'll come back to the University of Boya because...
Precisely.
Yes, exactly.
It makes a lot of sense for Anglophone.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense because Professor Nalova Lyonga, we are coming back to the university because her reign, you know, there was so much trouble between students, teachers. Remember when she came in, she banned the use of taxis from entering into the campus, and there was a lot of trouble at the university because students were complaining, lecturers were also complaining. Sometimes they come and they have to trek. For those of us who have been to the University of Boya, to trek from the main gate right into the campus is not easy. Sometimes it's raining, students have to trek. Worst of us teachers have to trek when they are writing exams. It's a decision that people, students, teachers resisted, and teachers even proposed that the university should come up with its own transportation system. But, well, allegedly she brought her own transportation company, some buses, they call them campus shuttle. And a lot of people criticized it because there were just about 3 or 4 buses to cater for about 20,000 teachers, students, and support staff combined. So it brought a lot of, teachers were not happy, students were not happy, but she maintained the decision. And there are a lot of people who said when she came, she shut down dialogue, and she had this tendency of divide and rule. When the National Union of Teachers of Higher Education, SINES, when the Boya chapter met last year in 2016, they raised a lot of points against her. They said she puts junior colleagues she appoints them as head of departments to spite older colleagues that have been in the institution. So she had a lot of problems with staff, and also we understand, I think I would say the last straw that broke the camel's back as far as her reign is concerned was in November 2016 when university students went out. They were resisting the 10,000 francs charge, the fee that you had to pay 10,000 francs extra for late registration, and also the 50,000 francs presidential grant that some students did not have. It was it was a peaceful demonstration.
But she called in the troops.
She called in the troops, and it led to,
one of the bloodiest
campus
protests witnessed in
and
Cameroon.
We had incidences where students were raped and all those, so it fueled even the Anglophone crisis because the videos circulated all over the world. People, it was...
She's not, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Gina, she's not too old to go on retirement.
She's not too old. Her retirement was just due. February 2016. There are many people that have exceeded their retirement. She's not too old.
So technically,
she could
some people are
that is the reason why many people think that she was flushed, she was sacked, and they don't even want to look at the fact that her retirement date was due. So anyway, yes.
Thanks for coming.
So that's what has been trending.
We'll talk about other trending issues in the next edition of Toughtalk. Thanks once again.
Most definitely. You're welcome.
I love your look. Now let's take a break, and when we come back, Elie Smith will be here, so we go to the war front. Just to remind you, you're watching Tough Talk, an exclusive on Canal de English. Now, since June the 24th, that was Saturday, the minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense, Joseph Betty Asomo, has been afield, and his major stopover was in the far north region of Cameroon, where soldiers are currently battling Boko Haram fighters from across the border in Nigeria and sometimes even in Cameroon. The trip happened on the back of a recent soldiers' mutiny, a particularly bloody Ramadan, and a new surge in the frequency of Boko Haram attacks on Cameroon. The mean def, that's how they call him, Elie Smith, the Minister of Defense, actually, deserves pats on the back for his audacity. It's about one of the rarest government personalities to leave Yaoundé every now and then and go up north to visit the soldiers.
Yeah, I don't think he doesn't deserve any pat on the back. We would have wanted Paul Biya to go there, and he has not. He has absconded. The commander-in-chief of the Cameroon Armed Forces is unable even to leave the presidency and go to Yaoundé Military Hospital to salute, or to commiserate with those. You have John Fundi, who lives all the way from Bamenda to come there. You have Idris Deby, who lives all the way from Jamena, and he doesn't go there. So if he goes there, it is his job to go there to mobilize and show up the morals of the troops.
Keja Henry, it may be safe to conclude that the trip by Joseph Betty Asomo, coming on the back of an observable ease with which Boko Haram militants now come into the far north. I'll just tell you that there have been more than a dozen attacks in that area in the past 2 weeks. It betrays a swelling malaise within the ranks of the army at the war front. Does it to you?
The same thing, and don't forget that it comes to the National Assembly is already holding talks. They have probably they have deliberated on the bill that has passed that will clamp now very seriously on probably those they will consider dissident army. But then it is a very difficult one, especially when the country is faced with threats.
Okay.
And if the country is faced with threat where the army has to sit up, then the government now is coming with a law that is threatening the army. So I fear what complicity there might be between those army who are not comfortably treated at the war front and the enemy probably along the line. They might, who knows?
Only a few months ago, Elie Smith, I heard officials at the Regional Joint Task Force, or what you call the Multinational Joint Task Force, as well as top senior Cameroon army officers, voicing the impression that the war against Boko Haram was now getting to an end. But some now, reading between the lines, think that the grumbling by the army and army officials, 32 of them took to the streets on the 3rd of June, that it could be a calculated move, given the prevailing context, elections next year, Anglophones grumbling in the West, insecurity in the East with the Central African Republic on the border. Would you agree it's a calculated move by some military officials for bigger pay?
Yeah, I think it's true. Normally it's tactical. When you feel that you strike your enemy in cold, when you feel that he's much more vulnerable. I think the army did it simply because they felt that, well, this was a time or never to do such a thing when they think the government would have responded. But I think that if there's any bill in parliament to clamp down on dissent within the military, it's not going to solve the problems.
Okay.
They have to look at the underlying reasons why did they go on strike. And there is another thing. It is normal for the government, the people, the top brass of the army, to claim that they have won over Boko Haram if it is on...
Or that victory is near?
Or victory is near. That is on position or on conventional warfare. But what we have to understand is that Boko Haram is it's like a moving sun. It changes.
Hydra.
You understand?
Hydra.
For example, you have, at the hierarchy of the Boko Haram, we don't know whether it is Ahmed Barnawi who is governing. You don't know whether it's Halet No who is governing. These two individuals are Cameroonians who have cut their teeth in the north, in the Sahel region, some right down to Afghanistan with Mullah Mohammed Omar, the spiritual leader. Yeah, the spiritual leader of the Taliban. But there is another thing that is really frightening, because we have the asymmetric warfare has really improved. And it seems as if this thing has gone even beyond Cameroon, because now we have one guy called Bana Balanchara who lives in Central African Republic, who is a Cameroonian, who controls the traffic of cobalt and minerals in North Kivu, who is in the whole show. I think they are doing that simply because the Boko Haram is resurging, simply because there's a kind of lull within the Cameroonian army or within the regional task force, simply because the money is not there.
Okay, we'll come to Chadian President Idriss Déby's threats to pull out his troops from the regional task force if the international community does not come to his aid with money. But Kejan, on June 3, we mentioned this a while ago, 32 soldiers actually blocked the road from Kuseri to Marwa. They were demanding bigger pay. They actually wanted to be paid the same money that their comrades keeping peace in the Central African Republic paid. But the government reaction, the government airlifted these men to Yaoundé, and they're currently awaiting punishment. Was it heavy-handed?
Yes, it was heavy-handed. It was heavy-handed. Once an army, it is true they give privileges to some of the those they call the special squad or the special force. Those who are for territorial defense are like those who are defending the president of the republic that you call the presidential guard. I don't think there is any difference. They are army. They are defending the territory. That is what I talk of territorial defense.
So they should be treated the same?
They should be treated the same. They are army. Now, if you are going out for an extraordinary service for, you know, the country or for the continent or the sub-region, yes, you have some extra stipend. But what about those who stay behind to guard the house?
Okay.
Are you different from them? Are you extraordinary? So they have a right to say, okay, if these people are going out to, you know, defend, to, you know, as a contribution to the task force, they should be able to have something, at least a stipend added to that.
Okay. Now, in passing, Minister Betty Asomo actually labeled the 32 mutineers as militiamen and not military men. I mean, that's a statement because some observers have said the 32 only represent a tiny tip of a huge iceberg of angry members of the Cameroonian army. So that statement could potentially backfire.
Of course, it is going to backfire. And as you rightly said, I think a while ago we did a program here and we spoke about this. The thing is, I beg to differ with Henry. If those people are working for the multinational task force, they have a special allowances or a special stipend which is different from the national army.
Because
and that
the money comes
from the external bodies or multinational organization.
Right.
Why is it that that amount of money has been disbursed? It went to the Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Finance. You don't pay them that way. That's the reason why they are right, because there are two missions. You have a mission which is under the regional force or regional mission, and the payment or the entitlement for military men who are going out for international mission like in Central Africa or beyond is different. When you are paid, let's say 1.5 million CFA franc, and it should be given to you that way. The thing is, you will not tell us that, right? Because a man stands up to defend his right, you start calling him names, calling him militia. No, that is the dangerous thing we have in this country. I think that we need to be humble enough and learn how to dialogue and listen to people's cry. The problem of those people was simply because their entitlement or their emolument is different from that of the national army, and it was not given to them that way, and they have the right to stand up and defend their right.
Okay. Henry Kejan, let me paint, a kind of picture of Cameroon's prevailing socio-political climate. Boko Haram up north, the Anglophone crisis in the former West Cameroon, 2018 elections in the horizon. Some say no short supply of discipline can be tolerated within the army by President Paul Biya, who relies on it for his survival.
Yeah, he should rely, generally, because he's always relied on his army for his survival. That is natural. But when you look at like you paint, the political climate, the Anglophone crisis is still far from being solved. The Boko Haram up north is still far from being solved. Because I think there's a video that
President Paul Biya afford to play with the army?
He will not afford to play with the army. That is, some time ago on this same program, we said that all other Cameroonians can starve, but the army will never starve. Yes. Now, to hell with the teachers who went on strike, right? The army in fact, what happened in the north is a replica of what happened. In fact, that is the same scenario that took place in Yaoundé. They were heavily paid because the situation took place in Yaoundé.
Okay.
Up north, it is a different scenario because situation took place there, and they might interpret it otherwise, and that is why they were ferried for. Well, I don't know if they have been tried or they have been tortured or whatever. Or
and as we speak, Elie Smith, Cameroonian soldiers fighting Boko Haram in the country's far north could see their workload substantially increase if Chadian President Idriss Deby decides to go along with his threat to pull out his troops from the regional task force.
Yes, it will really, they will have a lot of work to do, and then they're going to have a lot of problems because the Chadians have the experience better than the Cameroonians, and saying that doesn't mean that we are not patriotic. But the Chadian president is doing so because, as you know, he is on the brink. His country is almost bankrupt. So by doing like that,
he came to get 30 billion from
Cameroon.
Yes, he came to give take 30 billion from Cameroon, and Cameroon went to beg to Saudi Arabia. So you are robbing Paul to pay Peter. The thing is, when he says such a thing, if the international community was dragging their feet to replenish the coffers, because he has a problem, he has a large standing army fighting all over the place
in Mali,
and so. And saying what he did, it's a kind of public relations stunt he did, and trying to whip up the pressure on the various stakeholders and partners in order for them that promises should not remain promises, they should pay. But if he if he keeps his threat that he's going to pull out the forces of Chad in the joint task force, is not going to spell well for the Cameroonian army, and it's not a good news for Cameroon.
Let me give you a couple of statistics. Chad is a key contributor to the efforts against terror, both in the Sahel region and in the Lake Chad Basin area. 1,390 forces for the MINUSMA, that's what's combating the terrorists in Mali. 2,000 troops for the regional joint task force. Chad is expected to contribute another 2,000 to the G5 Sahel Force, or Sahel G5 Force, which is due creation when President Macron comes to the Sahel region for a summit in the coming days. Elie Smith was saying this could be a well-calculated strategy by the Chadian president to earn a couple of billions for his national treasury, considering that oil prices have been tumbling, and that's the source.
That could be a source. If you do a rough arithmetical calculation, it will give you approximately 5,500, army that Chad is deploying alone. Now, let us ask ourselves the question: how many do we supply with the multinational force? Have we been able to verify what Cameroon gives in?
Cameroon has close to 2,000.
Close to 2,000. That is Chad close to 6,000, and they are preparing to have to supply more if they have to get the kickbacks to fill their coffers. So, if Idris pulls out his forces, it will be catastrophic, as Elie says.
Okay.
Now,
Elie,
is he ready to pull the forces and stay and get the money, or rather pull the forces and stay bankrupt, or maintain them and get the money from the international community?
Elie Smith, President Deby, and this is an interpretation, he says he has spent over 300 billion CFA francs in the last few years in those efforts to combat the terrorists. But this is the same person who refuses to organize elections in his country on the grounds that he has no money.
Exactly. That's when you see that he's a dictator. He's no longer just a dictator. It's a kleptocracy that he's at the head of there in Chad. He was doing that also to prop up his own image, because it's good we hear he has sent soldiers to Cameroon, going even over to Nigeria, in Mali. But there's one thing.
He was actually accused of toppling Bozize in the Central Africa.
Exactly. But there's one other thing people fail to understand. Boko Haram, when they were having their weapons coming from Sudan, they were passing through Chad and passing through Cameroon. Okay. Cameroon and Chad, saying it doesn't mean that we are not patriotic, turned their eyes the other way because they felt that, well, you can go and destabilize northeast of Nigeria. It has nothing to do, because they forgot that the ideology of the Islamic group, that they don't know borders. They want to recreate a caliphate or recreate the Kanem-Borno empire that overlaps those countries. He did all those things because he wanted people to look at him as if he's the savior of the continent. He's not the first person to do that. The other person who did it was called Blaise Compaoré. So I want to say that saying that he has spent the amount of money he has mentioned doesn't exonerate him for the fact that he has been a poor manager and a dictator in his country. He's unable to organize elections. Very soon he will say he's in power, as I hear him say that he has elongated his tenure in power, not because he wanted, but at the wish or the desire of France, which is a big lie, because he wants to use France as his whipping boy.
Thanks very much, Elie Smith. We'll take a brief respite right now. And when we come back, we'll be going over to, well, France, where siblings of currently serving African presidents are under trial for stashing millions of money stolen from their country in French business entities. Let's take a break and we'll be back in a jiffy. A decade ago, international rights defenders and well, those who have their eyes on money, the anti-corruption agencies, directed fingers of accusation at several Central African leaders for robbing their countries of huge amounts of money and investing such in real estate and other businesses, especially in Europe and France. Curiously, Elie Smith, as the charges begin to take shape, we have Théodore Obiangema, the son of Equatorial Guinea's Obiangema Mbazogo. His trial opens today in Paris. We have the daughter of Congolese President Denis Sassou Nguesso, Julienne Sassou Nguesso, who has been formally charged with taking her people's money and spending them, especially in the big mansion in Paris. Cameroon is not on that list, but 10 years ago, Cameroon was at the top.
Yes, Cameroon 10 years ago was at the top of the accused. The thing is that Cameroon is not as if we are not on the list, then means we are out and have very good. The thing is that we have astute thieves. They know how to dissimulate the wealth that they steal from Cameroon, the Cameroonian government. They are very good thieves. They know how to dissimulate their loot, which is not as visible as the presidents or the siblings of the presidents of Congo, Brazzaville, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea. In other words, the problem with the Cameroonian thieves are that they are not show and tell. They know how to dissimulate. Whereas Théodorine is
a shopaholic.
Exactly. Or Denis Sassou Nguesso, who is a heir apparent. Extravagant. Julien Nguesso, extravagant. So that's the reason why their eyes, everybody's eyes are on them. Transparency International, Sherpa of William Bourdon. And it is a very good thing. I think now those NGOs should be supported by Western governments so that, for example, their children, their multiple girlfriends, they themselves should not even send their children there for education. They should not go there for medical treatment because they loot monies from their countries. They don't do anything. They go and stash it in France, in Switzerland. So I think it's a very good thing for Africa. So Cameroon's government mouthpiece, Issa Chiroma Bakary, should be heaving huge sighs of relief because so far there's no Cameroonian mentioned in the ongoing probe Henry Keja. But does it worry you that such could come from France? The probe is not African engineered. It's done in a French court by French investigators.
Hey, don't forget that it is an NGO that is doing that. And if an NGO is doing that, there is the worry because they are asking themselves the question, why are these people persistently in problems? Why do they have a system which is not operating? Why do they come to our hospitals? Why? And at the end of the day, we'll find their children, lavishing in opulence in our country when you don't have a simple hospital that can provide generics. It becomes difficult. And so they have to organize the probe or orchestrate the probe. It is a good thing. I don't want to know whether it's coming from France or from America or from Britain or whatever. But they who are organizing this are not comfortable with the way we are living in this country.
That's curious.
In this country,
are they comfortable with keeping 85% of reserves from African
No, they are not the ones keeping divine.
Beyond 50%.
Good. This NGO is not the one keeping the NGO is not the one keeping the money. They are worried about people keeping money in their country and their country using the money.
You're not worried about stolen money that's invested in your country, Elie?
Yeah, we are worried. Now, you asked a question to Kejang, which I think we have to be clear. Why is it that this thing is being engineered from abroad and not from within? Yes. The thing is simply that in Congo, Brazzaville, the judiciary is not independent. It's simply like in Cameroon. Okay. For let me give you an example. The head of the Congolese investigation, his name is Okongakala. Colonel Okongakala. He's a tribal person of the Denis Sassou Nguesso in Mboshi. His niece is called Michelle Stella Aimé Emmanuel Yoka. She's the deputy of the Attorney General. So you have a situation whereby in Cameroon, in Congo Brazzaville, in Gabon, in Chad, in Equatorial Guinea, those are violent dictatorship. They are kleptocracy. The judiciary is not independent. Okay. Those leaders have a corrosive influence on those governments to a point that nothing can be done. Hence, those type of decisions can only be taken from without and from an NGO, because most often, even the French government are also in tandem with what is going on, because why should you accept somebody to steal money from Gabon, steal it from Congo as they, because we're talking about Julian. Before Julian, the nephew to Sassou Nguesso, his name is Wilfried Sassou Nguesso, was also in court for looting the coffers of Congo Brazzaville and keeping it in France and also in Canada. Okay,
now Henry, the mansion based in Paris that well reportedly belongs to Julian Sassou Nguesso was initially valued at €3 million. It has an indoor swimming pool. It has 7 bedrooms. We have pictures of them. I'm sure we're going to get to them in the next couple of minutes. It was renovated at the cost of €5.34 million. I mean, when you add this all up, it comes up to about €10 million. That's for a single lady who calls herself the daughter of a president. The question, Henry, is how can the French pro go? This thing started in 2007, even before. And why is the target on Central African leaders and their siblings?
Yeah, because the Central African sub-region, we all know what is going on compared to West Africa that has actually seen...
It's only Francophone Central African country.
Francophone Central African country, well, good, minus Equatorial Guinea.
Which is still Francophone.
Of course, it uses the French franc. Good. Juliet is already competing with somebody like the King of Saudi Arabia, who owns George Seng in France. But that is his money because he worked for, and as a heir to the throne.
There is debatable
where he worked for. Good.
Yes, you mean the King of Saudi Arabia. It's debatable.
It's debatable.
Yes.
Now, but what a hell will Julian be doing with such a huge amount, you know, in Paris? And when you are talking about Paris, it's not at Paris Vincennes or Paris 16 or Paris 18.
Paris says the post part if you have his...
Well, Paris says, even if you have in Paris says sport. Yeah, so it becomes difficult to accept such a thing when the people of that country are catch-trapped.
Okay. It's unfortunate. We're going to be running out of time, but Elie, I'll pose 2 questions to you. Why now? Do you suspect a hidden agenda? That's 1. 2, can Africans also do the same thing to a certain Nicolas Sarkozy, for example?
Now, I'll begin by the second. First of all, Nicolas Sarkozy is not like Denis Sassou Nguesso. And France is a democracy. The judiciary in France is independent. In the Central Africa sub-region, it is not independent. And now, why now? Why now is simply because of the judiciary. Why now is simply because, you know, there are a lot of obstruction taking place in order for such trial to take place. For example, he has a lawyer called Olivier Pardo. He's my friend. So they spend a lot of money to obstruct justice. That's the problem. That's the reason why. And it is a very good thing that it should start now, because the hideout of dictators, kleptocrats, is in Central Africa. That's the reason why the focus is here in Central Africa.
Can it be reciprocal, Keja Henry, that, and this is the second time I'm going to ask you the question, that an African NGO can go against a French leader,
It
for
isn't-
example, and succeed?
It isn't possible. Go against a French leader. Where have you ever heard that, such leaders in Europe, for example, are so corrupt, to the extent that an African leader or an African NGO will come and prompt them? Where would they even start? Because there is every reason, there are every mechanisms for checks and balances. So you don't pilfer with public treasury and think you go scot-free in Europe or in the West, put it that way.
Thanks very much, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Unfortunately, we didn't have much time to develop these points, but we'll definitely come back on them because the cases are only starting. They're going to continue. On the cameras was Emmanuel Bevika, Lebja Roland was on the editing machines, and of course, Patrick Chamani was on the dashboard. Kejan says, at the end of the program, please extend greetings to the people of Nsongwa village in Bamenda. That's exceptional because we don't greet people on Toughtalk. Thanks. Anything goes this time around. Let's catch you again very, very soon when we coming back probably with some other tough talking points for your enjoyment. Until then, stay safe and run out of trouble on the double as always. God bless you all.